How do we eat healthy without tracking our macros? Is it possible to find food freedom while also tracking our macros and work on our relationship with food? Or do we need to focus on healthy eating and not track calories anymore or macros? We're going to unpack that today in today's episode because I think this is a very, very, very important topic to cover. And this is something that I wanted to have conversations about when I was working on my relationship with food, when I was wanting to pursue fitness goals. I didn't feel like this was talked about enough in this space because I genuinely feel like there is a pull between gym fitness culture where like you go to the gym doing a bodybuilding split, supplements galore, tracking your macros, etc. Everything is about your physique. And then on the other end of the spectrum, it's intuitive eating. It feels like, I'm not saying it is, but it feels like fitness isn't like a huge priority in that area. It also feels like if you even mention the words weight loss or body composition change, that's a bad thing. And so I feel like there are these polar opposites, and I land somewhere in the middle where I don't think that one is either good or bad, right? They're just different approaches to fitness, and we're going to dive into this more. But I just wanted to share that right off the bat because I don't think that tracking is inherently bad, right? It's a tool, and we're going to, again, get into like why we would want to track, why we would not want to track anymore, how we would go about that. But yeah, I really feel like 1% Healthier is about navigating both the extremes and coming together and figuring out, okay, well, what is healthy moving forward? Like, what is actually healthy and how can I apply those healthy principles into my life? And I like to think about it as like a celestial center where if you want to move forward and genuinely make progress on your fitness journey, you have to acknowledge and hold on or like reach your arms out and extend to both sides in order to have balance in moving forward. So when we think about living a healthy, sustainable lifestyle, we need to acknowledge both sides of the coin, right? But also understand that too much of a virtue can become a vice. So let's unpack. Before we get into it, hello, welcome to the podcast. My name is Megan Timpson. This is the 1% Healthier podcast hosted by me. I'm a personal trainer. I take a holistic approach and I really focus on the nutrition and your mindset behind it, which I think is really fun to talk about and really fun to help people with. So in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about a couple different bullet points. Let me give you the bullet points and we'll dive into it. So I want to talk about why do we start tracking macros in the first place? When do we want to stop tracking our macros? I want to talk about obligation versus choice, and then how I personally go about healthy eating without tracking macros and my transition from that because I used to track for years. It was honestly like a up and down transition of like, should I not? And also I'd been kind of tracking on and off for years. So we'll talk about that just so you can kind of hear my experience. But I want to talk about, okay, well, why do we track calories in the first place? What do we want to get out of that? And I'm assuming you're in a spot right now where you have a fitness goal, and you want to change. And so right now you're at this point where it's, do I diet again? Do I track my macros? Do I track my calories in order to get my fitness goal or my weight loss goal, my body recomposition goal? Or is there another way of going about it, which is probably why you clicked on this episode and you're like, how do I get to my goals? And do I have to track macros to get there? Because I've done it in the past. And so you're probably at this point where you're trying to make that decision, right? And when we choose to track our macros, usually it's because we want to gain awareness around what it is that we're eating. We want to understand that so that way we can make tweaks and changes that we need to in order to produce a physical result. And usually when we track macros, it's because we are trying to diet in some way. And I think that's probably why sometimes it gets a bad rap, is because when people track their calories, it's usually because they're trying to diet and lose weight. It's not necessarily, or to gain weight, I guess, but it's usually for like a body composition. It's not always for like a performance goal, like if you're trying to run like an ultra marathon or something of that nature where you really need to be on top of your nutrition. So there's pros and cons to that. But usually that's what comes to mind is, how do we gain awareness around what we're eating? We want to achieve a body recomposition goal. We want to diet. We want to make sure we're quote unquote eating enough. I hear that a lot of the times as well. And really briefly, I think it's important to understand like, what are ways that we can know that we're eating enough without tracking our macros? That could be that we aren't hungry all the time. That could be that we are eating meals that satisfy us. That could mean that we are pooping in the morning. That could mean that we have regular digestion. That could mean that we aren't feeling bloated after meals. That could mean that we have a stable mood throughout the day. That could mean that we're recovering well from our workouts and we're not constantly sore all the time. There's a lot of other ways that we can measure, are we eating enough? Like even good sleep. Are we getting good, high quality sleep? that we don't have to track our macros to know that we're eating enough. So I want to ask you, this is an opening question. When we think about tracking our macros, are we tracking because we think that we can't get a result without it? Or are we genuinely curious and completely detached from the outcome? I want you to really think about that. And then also, what beliefs do you have around tracking macros? What comes up for you? Like, what stories do you think about? What stories do you tell yourself? Maybe some of those beliefs might be, if I don't track my calories, I will lose control, or I'll let myself go. Another one might be, if I track my calories, it's the only way that I will lose weight. Another one might be, I should know all the calories that I'm eating. I should know the foods that I'm eating. I should know the macronutrient breakdown in order to get the goals and feel how I want to feel, right? And all these things are very valid. And I want you to just think about what comes up for you. Maybe there's other ones that you think about of why you track personally, right? There's different reasons for everyone. But I want you to know that these are not facts. Like, if I don't track, I'll lose control. It's not a fact. That is a belief. And that's a belief that you have because of repeated evidence that you've given yourself. So it makes sense why that comes up for you. And oftentimes I also feel like those can be self-fulfilling prophecies. Like, oh, if I don't track my macros, I'm going to eat anything that I want to, everything that I want to. And then you do it because you've already believed that. You've already told yourself that that's the story you're going to live out, and you don't know any other story to tell yourself. So I think that that's something to just be aware of like, what are the stories that I'm telling myself? And am I open to learning another way? Am I open to learning how to eat healthy and develop those skills rather than following a perfect plan? Am I open to that? Is that something that I would like to do? I don't know. But the next bullet point that I want to talk to you about is, when do we know that it's time to stop tracking? Or if you are, I also imagine you might be in a spot where you've been tracking for a long time, maybe on and off, but you want to venture into working on your relationship with food, but you might have those like same stories and beliefs that come up that make you still track, right? But when is it time to let go of tracking? Well, I'll tell you a couple of reasons why, and these are all reasons that I did too, because I was really afraid to let go of tracking, and we'll get into that in a second. But here's how you're gonna know if it's time to let go of tracking. One of those ways is that it's no longer a tool for you. It's something that you've become dependent on. You have to track your macros. It's out of obligation. You have to do it. Otherwise, you don't know what you're going to eat. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't know how your body's going to react. You don't know if you're going to lose weight. You don't know if you're going to gain weight. You don't know these things. And so you have to. If you are dependent on it, then that's a sign that it might be time to explore learning the skills rather than following a perfect plan. And another thing to keep in mind is that when we're dependent on it, it's usually because we have attached emotional weight behind tracking macros and what we're making that mean, because it is no longer about just math anymore. This is a performance metric. It's something that you're using to show yourself something about yourself, to show yourself that you are as disciplined as you say you are, because you can be exact about your calories, exact about your macros. It's something that you're trying to prove. So it's no longer just about the calories. It's no longer about you're just curious. This is something that you've been doing for years to show yourself something. And what have you been trying to show yourself? And the good way of checking to see if it's time to let go of tracking macros is asking yourself, if I miss my goal, how do I feel? If I go over my calories, how do I feel? If I don't hit my protein goal, how do I feel? What do I start to tell myself? And if what you're telling yourself is that because I did that, because I went over my calories, I'll never reach my goal, because I never hit my protein goal, I'm never going to change. Or if you're telling yourself, oh my gosh, I messed up again, how could I do this? If these are the stories that you're telling yourself, then it is a sign that this has become way more emotional and not as objective and as a tool and useful to you as it could be. Because I want you to think about this too. When I first got into the nutrition coaching space a couple of years ago with my personal training clients, when it was about tracking macros at that time, I don't coach people to track macros anymore. But when it was like, okay, well, we're going to track for 6 to 12 weeks. And then through the last couple of weeks of the program, we're going to talk about how to not track anymore. So the goal is not to track anymore. Like if it's 12 weeks, right? But if that's the only way that you have been taught how to get results, then it's like, well, what's going to happen if I don't track anymore, right? And so if you have been tracking for years, I don't think, my personal opinion, it is not about the food anymore, because that's been my experience. Is what I've been seeing through a lot of other people. It's not about the food anymore. It's about something else that you're trying to control. Yes, you can try and control your food and you can go on diets, but you are not meant to be in a calorie deficit year-round, years and years and years. And that's what I had noticed with myself, is every time I was tracking macros, I was trying to be in a deficit. And that was such a weird awakening for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever spent any time like trying to track in maintenance. I don't think I'd ever done that. And I was like, wow, like I genuinely have been trying to be in a calorie deficit forever. And the reason why I hadn't ever wanted to be in a surplus or maintenance was because I felt like I was already kind of doing that because I kept messing up. And so I just had to like focus and be more disciplined and track better and track more accurately and all these other things. But you need to understand, one, you're not meant to be in a calorie deficit year round. Two, if you've been tracking for years and years and years and it's still not working for you, then what is that telling you? Because it's not you that is the problem. It's your approach that might be the problem. And I think it's just really hard for us to think about maybe there's another way of going about eating healthy or achieving our fitness goals that doesn't have to do with tracking when that's all that we're used to. So the goal is, if you have been in that spot and you're trying to figure out how to eat healthy without tracking macros because you don't know any other way, the goal of this episode and my entire podcast is to help you have that healthier mindset, to help you reach your fitness goals, to help you get your life and your mind back. That's like the most important thing, because holistic health is not just about a fitness goal, like a physical goal. It's also about your mindset. It's about spiritual. It's about social. It's about all these other things that help you move forward along your path. At the end of this section, I want you to ask yourself again, are you tracking because you think that you can't get results without it, or are you genuinely curious and detached from the outcome? Because if you're really honest with yourself, you might be, oh yeah, I'm genuinely curious, but on the other end, you might be like, you know what, I do think that I am attaching a lot more emotions, and this is more of a performance metric for me rather than just a mathematical equation. Because I think that's also another thing that we get really tied up in and frustrated about is, I know for me, I would like see people posting their macros of their breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, especially some bodybuilders that I follow, and I'm like, I'm trying to eat those same things, or like I eat the same things but like a different amount. Like, why am I not getting results when they're getting results? And then getting really frustrated because it feels like it should just be a plug and play system, right? It's just math. But I was making that mean so much more than just the food, right? It was, okay, there must be something wrong with me because I'm not getting results. There must be something wrong with me because that's not satisfying enough to me. I want other foods, all these other things. So I just want you to be really aware of, if you are tracking, the emotions that you're attaching to it, okay? Because if you are dependent on it, it's never going to be a sustainable solution to your nutrition in the long term. And that's what we're really after, is trying to think about how can we achieve a healthy and sustainable lifestyle that's not just for 12 weeks, but for our whole life, years ahead of us. And if we're like, I don't want to track my macros for the rest of my life, then can we learn another way of going about it that would make us feel good and healthy in this moment and tomorrow and the next day and the next year and forever? And I think that really is the superpower. That's what's going to make you a freaking weapon in the gym, is because you don't attach unnecessary emotions to how you perform in the gym. I've been reading The Inner Game of Tennis, and they're talking about how we have to be detached from the outcome. Like if you were to see tennis players playing back and forth, you can see on their faces when they feel like it's good or bad, like it's a good shot or a bad shot. So it's really interesting, because then he's also talking about the umpire, the judge, who will just call the shots out or in. And he doesn't think that they're good or bad. He just thinks that they're in or out. Like that's just the law, right? Those are the rules of the game. The same way that a food can be nutritious and also not nutritious. But what are we making it mean? Is that a good shot or a bad shot? And so when we can take a step back and be objective and be like, yeah, that wasn't in, that was out. or that was in. I scored the point. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden I am the greatest person ever, I'm the best person, and then when I miss a shot that I'm the worst tennis player ever. It comes down to these stories that we're telling ourselves, and I just think that was a really interesting thing that I was learning, because that is such a skill to be objective and non-judgmental, and that's one of the biggest steps that you have to take when you're working on healing a relationship with food, is being non-judgmental and being curious about your choices, being curious about your habits, being curious about what it is that you gravitate towards. You have to be curious about the goals that you want and why you want them. All these things you have to be curious and non-judgmental about if you genuinely want to move forward, because if you're judging yourself, then you're going to keep running in the same loop over and over and over. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk to you about is obligation versus choice, because you might feel like, okay, well, maybe I just need to have a healthier relationship with tracking macros and not be so emotionally attached to it, and then I'll be fine. We can think that, but I don't want you to stress yourself out any more than you probably already are and try and be so positive about tracking macros to try and avoid like how you actually feel, right? This toxic positivity around macros or something. Like if you think about a horrible situation in the world and you're trying to be toxically positive about it and just like, yeah, everything is sunshine and rainbows, and trying to ignore that. If you bury those feelings buried alive never die. And so if you're trying to avoid the emotional attachments by being positive about it, then it's not going to get you the results that you want either. You genuinely have to learn how to create results without it and build trust with food and with your body without it, which means that you don't need it to create results. And that gives you the ability to use tracking if you want to, or not use it if you don't want to. That is the key factor, is that you have a choice. It's not out of obligation. It's not because I have to. It's the only way that I know how to reach any kind of fitness goal. It's the only way I know how to know if I'm eating enough. It's the only way that I know how to eat healthy. It becomes a choice for you if you want to, rather than an obligation. Sometimes the only way that we can develop healthy eating patterns without tracking is by taking away that crutch, taking away our dependence on it, and genuinely learning how to work on the skills of eating healthy and learn to create results without it. If we never try, we'll never know. And what I found for myself, and what I often see a lot with other people as well, is that in order for you to actually learn how to eat healthy, especially if you are a very ambitious person, especially if you're someone who knows that you're made for more, if we really want to solve eating healthy and having a healthy, sustainable lifestyle permanently, not just temporarily, not just for 12 weeks, not just for a 30-day challenge, if we genuinely want to eat healthy and know that and trust ourselves and trust our bodies, we have to remove the crutch of having a coping mechanism to actually learn how to create the results without it and let go. We have to learn to let go. And like I mentioned earlier, we have to learn to be non-judgmental. We have to learn how to just call shots in and out rather than good and bad. And maybe I'm going to bring some more insights from that book into the podcast as well, because it genuinely is so good. But again, if you continue to track, it's not going to work the way that you want it to when your relationship with tracking is from performance, from pressure, from expectation to perform a certain way. It's going to continue to backfire. And I think that something that we need to understand as well is that you can choose to track, right? It's not an obligation, it's a choice. That's where we want to get to, is making it a choice. And that's food freedom as well. That it's not obligation to eat any food, anytime, anywhere, any amount. It is the choice. You get to choose what foods you want. You get to choose when. You get to choose how much. It's not out of obligation anymore. Especially if you've dealt with any kind of binge eating, overeating, emotional eating, whatever it is, it feels like it's not your choice because it's a coping mechanism, and we have to work through that. So something that I want you to know and be aware of is that there is no right or wrong. There are just trade-offs. You have to think about which version of you is the version that you want to be. So let's say one option is if your weight fluctuated to this weight, and that meant that you had a healthy relationship with food. You weren't binging, you weren't tracking your calories, you had your life back. You got to do sports without worrying about how your body looked. You got to do it without worrying about your abilities. You got to enjoy food. You got to go out to family events, to holidays, and you didn't have to constantly think about calories. Is that going to be enough for you? Is that going to be the life that you want? You have to ask yourself that, because then on the other side, let's say you have the body you want. You're at the weight that you think you want, but you do have to track your calories. You do have to track your macros. You still might have food thoughts all day. You don't trust yourself around food. You have to track. Is that going to be enough for you? Is that going to be the life that you want to live? You get to choose, right? There's trade-offs for each one, and it is your choice. This is your life, right? It just feels really hard because when you are working on your relationship with food and having a healthier mindset around food and around your body, it feels hard to separate that goal from your body composition goal or your weight loss goal because they are very different. And it doesn't mean that both can't happen. I'm not saying that you will never be able to lose weight. I'm not saying that you'll never be able to achieve some kind of fitness goal. But if you do want to genuinely work on your relationship with food, you have to commit to that too. You have to commit, and you have to put space between them and be willing to work on the skills and put the weight loss goal or the body recomposition goal on the back burner. You can come back to it. You can come back. I'm not saying that you're all of a sudden going to completely go off the rails, right? Sometimes I feel like it feels like that. I remember that was one of my biggest holdups when I was wanting to work on my relationship with food, was I felt like that meant I had to stop caring about fitness. That meant that I had to stop caring about exercise. That meant that I had to stop caring about how I looked. But the reality is that's not true. It is about shifting your attention, your focus, and your commitment. Committing to your health, what does that look like? Because again, it doesn't mean that you can't have both goals. It doesn't mean that you can't have your cake and eat it too. But if we really want to be great at some things, then we need to focus on that and be all in on that. And once we've mastered that skill, then we can focus on other things, add in other things, right? So that just takes time and it takes practice. But what will help you most right now is getting clear on what you want and what you value and what is most important to you, so that you can have the vision for where you ultimately want to go. Because once you know where you want to go, then it makes your next steps so clear. If I know down the road that I don't want to be tracking my macros anymore, I want to be able to trust myself around food, then I know that I need to take the steps that I need to take to stop tracking macros. And that might be scary right now, but I'm going to trust it and I'm going to get help and I'm going to do it, right? But if I know that I want this goal and that's different than that goal, then what are my next steps, right? Again, this is your choice and you need to get clear on what your vision is, on where you ultimately want to go. But if you're at a spot where you've been tracking on and off for a really long time and you're not happy with how you look, you're not happy with how you feel in your body, how your clothes fit, you're not happy with how you've been eating, you feel like you've quote unquote let yourself go. I'm going to make a reel about that whole idea. But if you feel frustrated with where you're at, does going back to what you've always done, do you really feel like that's going to work for you? Because it's not about willpower, it's not about discipline, it's not about tracking harder. This is about your approach, this is about your mindset, this is about your emotions, this is about the foundation that we talked about in episode 1. There's other things that are going on that are really going to help you move the needle, so that once you focus on the foundation, you can build the most beautiful, amazing house. You can have all the fitness goals that you want to. But if you keep running and avoiding your relationship with food, you keep avoiding your relationship with your body, you can't trust yourself, then any other goal is going to be really, really hard to get. So you could either work with yourself or you could work against yourself. And I think that that's really the point that I'm trying to make, is how can you create such a strong relationship with yourself so that way you can be so confident in who you are and what your values are, on your discipline, on your dedication, on what you're focused on, and go full force at that. Because let's say that you do want to have this fitness goal like body recomposition or a fitness event that you want to do, but your relationship with food is really holding you back. Well, then let's think the next 3 months, we're really going to work on our relationship with food. As we continue to work on our fitness, we're going to the gym, we're going on walks, we're running, whatever it is, but that is a secondary focus to healing our relationship with food. And that is a personal process that you would walk through, and that's something that I coach women through, is what does that look like for you to have a healthy mindset around your food, around your fitness, so that way you can be unstoppable. That way you can be a dangerous freaking weapon in the gym and have the confidence that you want to have, right? So again, it just is about shifting your focus and intention for a time to help you get on the right path to where you want to go. Because maybe you thought that you wanted this goal, but now you might want something else, and that's okay. Changing your mind is okay. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to change your goals. You're allowed to change what you value. Maybe at one point in your life, you really, really valued money. Maybe the next area of your life, you really, really value family, really, really value connection. Maybe at one point you really valued your alone time, your solo gym sessions, your solo runs, and then there's another time in your life where you really value group workouts, community runs. It is okay to change your mind, right? It's just about, what are my goals? Who do I want to be? What do I want to be? So I just want you to open your mind, open your heart to, am I willing to work on healthy eating and work on the skills that are required to do that? Am I willing to work on the skills that are required to reach my fitness goals, rather than just following a perfect plan? Because those plans are really awesome and fun and they work. Like, I'm thinking about like a fitness plan, because it also gives you that quick fix of dopamine that I mentioned last week, is that once we have a plan, we feel like the work is already like halfway finished. And so that's one of the reasons why we like start to tank off, is because we feel like, oh, half the way the work is already done, so we kind of slack off. Anyway, the last thing that I want to talk to you about today is how I go about eating healthy without tracking, and my mindset around that. Just a couple bullet points that I wrote down that I want to share with you is, I make sure to eat every 3 to 4 hours, and I eat before my workouts now. I used to train fasted all the time because I was like worried about having like a second breakfast. I don't know, guys. It was a weird time, but I eat probably like toaster waffle or some kind of carb or banana before my workouts. Then I come back, I have breakfast, and then I'm not like super like, I eat at 12 o'clock, I eat at 3 o'clock, I eat at 6 o'clock, like that. But I typically have like 3 or 4 meals, like solid meals a day, and then snacks in between if I want to. I make sure that I'm not going like 8 or 9 hours without eating, because I know that if I do that, then I'm setting myself up for failure, because then I'm going to be overly hungry, overly starving, and usually when I get to eat after that, then I overeat and I don't feel that great, right? So it's like a preventative measure. Like, I want to make sure that I'm eating consistently and frequently to fuel my body. Another thing that I focus on to eat healthy without tracking is I think about protein and all the macronutrients. Almost every single one of my meals has all 3 macronutrients, but if it just has 2, that's okay. If it just has 1, that's okay too. That's okay too. But my focus, my priority is getting in all the macronutrients, because I know that that is what's going to help me feel good, my digestion, my mentality, my recovery. All of these things are going to be improved when I'm eating things that I need, my body needs. And I genuinely do like to focus on whole foods. I like to focus on nutrient-dense foods, single ingredient foods, if you will, whatever you want to call it. I would say that I make the majority of my diet that. Sometimes I have snacks, and sometimes I go out for dessert, sometimes I go out to eat. But the thing that's different now is I'm not making that mean so much about me. I'm not making that mean that I'm a failure. I'm not making that mean that I'm all of a sudden off track. And because I'm off track, I have no discipline, right? It comes down to those stories that we tell ourselves. What are we telling ourselves about eating healthy? Like, what does that eating healthy look like for you? So I focus on protein and all macronutrients. I also focus on fiber and color. That's something that I feel often gets ignored, is fiber for digestion and color. Because personally for me, when I haven't had a lot of vegetables in a while or a lot of fruits, I feel it. I feel a little bit sluggish, or I feel like I'm craving some veggies, some fruits. And after a while of like eating nutrient-dense foods, your body wants those, right? And it's not like that makes me a great person or anything, because sometimes I used to feel like people would say that and put them on a pedestal or whatever, but it's true. Like, your body will crave what you repeatedly give it. So I focus on that as well. And then another note that I wanted to add is I have a what can I add mentality around my food. Instead of what can I take away, what can I restrict, what can I cut out from my diet, it's what can I add. So if I wanted, the other day I made a reel on TikTok about Cheez-Its. If I wanted Cheez-It crackers, I'd ask myself, well, what can I add to make this more nourishing? I could add some carrots to it. Okay, well, what can I add to make this more filling? Okay, I can add a string cheese or some deli turkey. And that makes a really balanced snack, because if I was really hungry and wanted a snack and I just ate Cheez-Its, I would know that that's not going to fill me up very well. So I should probably add something to that if I wanted to be fuller and not go crazy on the Cheez-Its. I could. That doesn't make me a good or bad person. Again, that just means that I'm probably not going to feel that great. and I want to feel good. So at the end of the day, what can I add has been a mindset that has genuinely changed the way that I see food, the way that I see nutrition overall. Because let's say, like I mentioned earlier, I try to have all 3 macronutrients in a meal. If I don't, then my next meal, I'm like, well, what can I add? What can I add to make this meal more nutritious for me? Another thing that I focus on is enjoying the treats and not feeling obligated to eat them. So ironically, I also made a TikTok about this the other day where I went to Trader Joe's. They have the pumpkin mini cones now. They're my favorite pumpkin item ever, 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 ever. So I got those, and it reminded me about, yes, I can have ice cream. I can have as much ice cream as I want to. If I ate all of them, would I feel that great? Probably not. And when I think about enjoying the ice cream, it's not about just being able to eat the ice cream whenever, have as much as I want whenever. It's about actually enjoying the ice cream. So what does that look like in that moment? I talked about in the reel how, yes, I could get in the car, rip open this box of ice cream, and start eating the ice cream on the way home. But that, to me, is not really an enjoyable experience. I've done that before. Did I remember what it tasted like? Did I remember enjoying it? No, it was something else. It was more of an emotional reaction. Oh, I'm finally getting this, a treat. When you call something a treat, it makes it special. It makes it, you put it on a pedestal. Then there's scarcity around it. So it's almost like once I have the ice cream, then I might as well just eat all of it and get it over with, right? So it really made me reflect the other day when I got the ice cream. I was like, if I really want to enjoy this, and if it's really about enjoying all foods, then I would wait until I got home till I could sit down and eat the ice cream and enjoy it, rather than rush and eat it and just get it over with. Because that's not an enjoyable experience, and that's more of your brain is still on a diet and still is dealing with some mental restriction around the food itself. So that's something to unpack. So that was a light bulb moment that came to me the other day that I wanted to share with you too, is when it comes to the treats, I genuinely focus on enjoying them. What would make me enjoy this more? Also, if I'm at a party where there's a lot of treats, then I ask myself, what am I going to enjoy most? Just because I can have all of them doesn't mean I want all of them, right? So that's something I think about too. And then I also focus on satisfaction with my meals, because I tend to eat the same breakfasts and also pretty much the same dinners and lunches on rotation, which is usually some kind of rice and ground beef. That's what I just had today. And with some Trader Joe's ranch dressing, that was delicious. But if I have that over and over again and I don't mix up the vegetables, if I don't mix up the sauces, if I don't change it up in some way, or I add maybe chips on the side, or I add something to give it a little extra flavor or a crunch or texture, that plays such a huge role in being satisfied. Because if I eat that and I'm mentally just okay, well, what's next? That didn't actually feel, I don't feel full. My stomach is full, but I'm not full. My mind is not full, right? So therefore I'm not satisfied. So then I go and search for some other snack or some other taste or some other ice cream. And then I would go look for ice cream or something. And so when I think about satisfaction in my meals, again, I'm building it around, am I getting the macronutrients? Am I getting color? Am I getting fiber? And then mixing up the taste, the texture, the temperature. That plays a big role. If you didn't know, now you know. And then the last thing that I wanted to share with you about my mindset around it is when I do go through streaks of unhealthy, you could say, eating, where I'm not eating a ton of nutrient-dense foods, whether by my own choice because I live by myself, or I go on vacation and we're going out to eat a lot, I just get curious. I allow myself to get curious, to take a step back. I'm not the player on the field calling shots good or bad. I am the umpire, the judge. I'm okay, well, what's going on? All those shots were out, or all those shots were in. Why were they out? How can you adjust your forehand? How can you adjust your backhand? How, different things like that. And I get curious. And I'm well, where have I been lacking and why? What was coming up for me? Did I really just not want to cook? Or was I feeling a certain way and just wanted to do this? Is allowing yourself to get curious about that, because if you get on this spiral of, oh, I ate something quote unquote bad, and then I feel bad about myself and I don't feel disciplined, and then I'm ruining all my gym progress, and then I feel bad about my body, and then because I feel bad about my body, I feel bad about what I'm eating, and then I want to eat something to comfort me, and then there's just this negative spiral that goes down and down and down. If you can just take a step back and get curious before you slip down that slippery slope, you're gonna bounce back so much quicker, or bounce forward, I should say, and move forward. So know that eating healthy without tracking is simple. It's not easy, it's simple, and it's learning to understand your hunger and your fullness, respecting your body, trusting that your body knows what to do with the food that you give it. Sometimes it's hard to believe that, but I remember when I first started to be like, okay, I need to stop tracking my calories if I really want to focus on having a healthy relationship with food, because as long as I'm hyper fixated on my food or hyper fixated on my body, I'm always going to be hyper fixated on the other one. So if I'm really trying to control my body, then I'm really trying to control my food. So that's why working on your mindset with food and body go hand in hand, because they play into each other so much. So I knew that I wanted to have a better mindset about myself and about my food. So when I first started taking those steps, I remember taking my gray food scale, pulling out the drawer, putting it in there, and closing the drawer. And I was like, I'm never going to get that out again. And that felt really scary. And then for the first probably couple days or weeks, I would just eat the meals that were on my meal plan, just without the scale. I would just kind of eyeball it, because in a way that again kept me safe, right? It kept me safe from the unknown. I was eating all the foods that I'd already known that I would eat. But then eventually, I was thinking, what did I do? I ate a grapefruit, something I didn't know, because it had a thick peel. And so I was just testing my limits on all these foods that I didn't allow myself to eat because I didn't know how to track them. So I was welcoming in those foods, and slowly but surely I started to work on fear foods and foods that I thought were quote unquote bad for me, or that would make me ruin all my progress, and allowing those in and just letting myself have them and realize I'm okay, I'm just fine. That was kind of the journey, and I'm sure that I talk about that more on my food story episode. I think that was episode 16, but it was a journey. But I tell you what, I don't regret it at all. I feel so good and so confident and so happy around food that I'm chill. If people want to go out to eat, I don't look at the menu anymore. I don't stress about it, because when you think about this too, if stressing about what you eat was healthy for you, that just makes you really think if something is causing you stress, is that really healthy for you? Probably not. And just makes you get really curious. So the two questions that I'm going to leave you with today, among the other ones that we talked about earlier, is number 1, what are other ways that you can show your discipline and your commitment to your health without tracking? And then the second one is, what is enough for me? What do I value? What is important to me? Who do I want to be, right? I want you to ask yourself, what is enough for me? Because once you decide that, then it becomes much easier for you to go all in on healthy for you. And that feels really good. There's no better feeling than going all in on something and feeling really good about it, rather than feeling really shameful and pressure, and there's so much emotional baggage that comes with that process. It feels really good to be all in and in a flow and being peaceful about it in your mind. These are also things that I'm learning about in the inner game of tennis. How ironic is that? But we have to learn to let go of using these coping mechanisms and being dependent on it. But anyway, I'm not going to beat this dead horse anymore. But I do want to invite you, if you had any light bulb moments from this podcast, DM me on Instagram. I'd love to hear what resonated. If there was a quote or a question that really made you think, or if there's a question that came up, or how do I go about this for myself, DM me on Instagram. I would love to hear from you. Love to hear your story and what's causing you the most struggle and causing you to shake your fist, right? Why is this so hard? I would really like to know that. And if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you go back and listen to episode 1 and 2 of this series. Next week is going to be how to stop hating your body. Because as we know, working on our relationship with food and body are so intertwined. And I can't wait to share with you the things that I've been learning, the things that have really helped me stop hating my body, start respecting myself more. It's going to be a really good one. And then the last thing is, again, if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe to the podcast, either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, and leave a 5-star rating. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.